Walking Dead Onslaught has some big boots to fill after its sister virtual reality game, Saints and Sinners, ended up becoming a defining title for the potential of VR gaming. While Saints and Sinners told a story separate from any existing Walking Dead canon, one of the key differences that allows Onslaught to stand independent of its comparison is its close ties to the AMC TV show, giving players the opportunity to step into the shoes of Rick, Daryl, Michonne and Carol as they blitz through a much more arcadey, action-oriented story taking place between the 8th and 9th seasons. Despite the potential of this premise, Onslaught's narrative doesn't go anywhere remotely interesting, and to compare its sporadic, thinly stretched story to a wild goose chase would be a disservice to the agility and wit of a goose. Though it must be said, grabbing zombies by their neck and ramming a machete down their throats remains one of the most satisfying experiences to be had in VR, even if Onslaught does milk it a bit. After a brief, if rather boring tutorial, Onslaught starts off rather promisingly, thrusting the player into the shoes of Rick Grimes as he follows a trail of crossbow bolts that hopefully lead to the disappeared emo biker Daryl, who's been missing for several days. Whilst this rescue mission proves to be a rather compelling quest to kick off the narrative, it's one that is disappointingly instantly resolved, with the rest of the story instead being told through frustratingly slow-paced flashback missions which add up to a thinly stretched 6-hour campaign. Despite the plot point of Daryl's sudden abandonment from the group and the sheer room of storytelling between the year-long gap of seasons 8 and 9, Onslaught bafflingly doesn't go anywhere exciting with these prospects, instead telling a very basic and bland story that makes me wonder why they even bothered tying it into the events of the show at all. Norman Reedus, Melissa McBride and Josh McDermott return to voice their roles as Daryl, Carol and Eugene respectively, but it doesn't really seem worth it. Carol has no role in the story outside of tending to plants in the background, and Eugene simply provides awkward one-liners as players open and close missions. Reedus' presence is definitely welcome given the focus on Daryl's flashbacks, but he's not really given anything interesting or exciting to deliver. Daryl narrates the flashbacks at an excruciatingly slow pace, with each mission barely furthering the advancement of the plot beyond moving from one disjointed barn to another and maybe finding a new weapon along the way. This slow pace is made even more frustrating by the extent to which these missions are gated by progression elsewhere in the game. Daryl pulls a George R.R. Martin and insists that the audience wait a frustrating amount of time before he reveals the next chapter of his adventure, requiring the player to earn enough supplies in the arcadey, if rather repetitive, supply run mode. Unlike Daryl's adventure, Supply Run lacks any story element, instead requiring the player to just race against a slowly advancing horde with the goal to collect as much food, ammo and upgrade currency as they can. As well as fighting off the several walkers that litter the streets, these frantic rushes through abandoned stores and beaten down houses are made even more hectic by the looming presence of the constantly advancing horde. Players have to make sure that they're staying ahead of the horde as they're diving in and out of houses, adding a refreshingly exciting layer of pressure that actually led to several narrow escapes, and is certainly the closest Onslaught has come to adding any layer of difficulty. Though the supply run mode feels like a chore when you're just wanting to see the campaign through to its end, it's definitely a fun, short burst experience to drop in and out of every now and then, thanks to developer Servios' spot-on nailing of an ever-satisfying combat system. Stopping a zombie in its tracks by grabbing its neck and throwing it around a bit before putting it out of its misery is a great interaction to show friends in a party setting. And the sound design of a well-aimed machete swing remains satisfying even on your 500th zombie kill. That's a relief, because you'll be doing a lot of melee kills. Though Onslaught features an accurate and intuitive gunplay mechanic, it is disappointingly underpowered, to the point where some undead will take up to 5 headshots to be downed. The result of this is that the choice to use any ranged weapon is rather foolish when you have a one-hit killing machine that never runs out of ammo. This definitely doesn't take away from how fun it is, it's just not particularly viable. Resources collected from supply runs are able to be spent on either upgrades for your steadily growing arsenal of weapons, or on rebuilding the growing community of Alexandria. Certain survivors will offer to build new facilities around the town that offer slight player buffs, though these ultimately amount to be relatively useless statistics that never really make a difference to gameplay given how fundamentally simple general combat is. However, it is worth noting, just days after TechRaptor published our review of Onslaught, Servios released a combat rebalance patch that addressed some of these issues, most notably increasing the damage of ranged weapons and decreasing the damage of melee weapons, as well as a whole host of other tweaks. While this patch didn't come out in time to affect our final review, Servios' dedication to amending issues brought up by critics, and most importantly players, is admirable. Aside from occasionally missing a rather hasty neck lunge, this combat system is impressively responsive, and the fact that it offers joystick and teleportation controls for movement makes the game quite accessible for any players new to VR. While its graphics aren't anything especially impressive, its most notable sin being the lazy and honestly laughable 2D texture for the steadily advancing zombie horde, my experience with Onslaught was entirely bug-free and consistently ran smoothly, which is something to be proud of in the VR department. If you're looking for a compelling story within the Walking Dead universe, Onslaught is definitely not the experience to sink your teeth into. Though if you're looking more for a sturdy and fantastically satisfying zombie killing simulator, you might find some meat on its bones.